Hello, I'm Avis Kalfsbeck, and this is the Peace is Here podcast. Welcome to Peacewarts, School of Peacecraft and Inquiry, where we practice the skills of peace through short classes. We take the peace work seriously, but not ourselves. If you're joining us mid-school year, you're not late. Orientation begins at episode 198. Welcome back to Peacewarts, Peace Scholars. We are in the Department of Social Chemistry in the reactor. In other places, you might study potions as a way to brew strange liquids for external effects. But here we study the alchemy of human connection. We are here because peace is a compound, not an element. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. It is the result of what happens when you mix diverse perspectives, historical traumas, and shared goals in the same vessel. This department exists to prevent isolation masquerading as interdependence. We are here to dismantle the myth that we can be safe or successful on our own. Above the supply cabinet, the inscription reads, "The catalyst is compassion." It reminds us that sometimes a situation just needs one stable element, one person with a regulated nervous system to change the entire reaction. Our department axiom is this: the solution is the mixture. The equipment check. The internal regulator. Your primary instrument in this department is your empathy. Not the sentimental kind, but the scientific kind. The ability to accurately read the temperature and acidity of social interaction. We use the tools of emotional intelligence to ensure that when we enter a conflict, we are acting as a healing agent rather than a volatile one. The warning. The trap of the toxic brew. A word of caution before we light the burners. Chemistry requires precision. If you add too much righteousness without enough humility, the mixture will turn toxic. You must also be careful not to let yourself be dissolved by the environment around you. To a social chemist, it is to be deeply involved in the mixture while maintaining your own elemental integrity. In our last department, we studied the frequency of the air. Here we study the elements within the vessel. When the ingredients are unstable or the temperature is too high, the solution becomes volatile. We are here to learn how to apply the quenching agent, the stabilization protocol that allows a reaction to change without being destroyed by the heat. The 19th century American psychologist and philosopher William James, who pioneered the study of how the body experiences emotion, once observed, "My experience is what I agree to attend to." The entry. The molecular view of stress. We begin with the cracked cauldron. In social chemistry, the cauldron is the human nervous system. When we are at rest, our biology is a stable solution, but when stress is introduced, the chemistry changes. The body releases a flood of cortisol and adrenaline that triggers what neurobiologists call the auditory gate. Under acute stress, the brain literally downregulates auditory processing. The thalamus and auditory cortex begin to filter out everything that isn't a direct signal of threat or dominance. This creates tunnel hearing. Just as a physical cauldron cracks under too much pressure and leaks its contents, a stressed nervous system leaks its ability to process peripheral meaning. In this state, a person genuinely cannot hear your nuance. Your qualifiers and context simply evaporate. A peace scholar recognizes that a stressed opponent is not refusing to listen, they are biologically incapable of it. The history. The Crimean miscommunication and the 1962 submarine B-59 pause. We look to history to see what happens when acute physiological stress and time pressure distort command decisions. During the lead-up to the Crimean War in 1853, diplomatic communications between London, Constantinople, and St. Petersburg broke down under extreme stress. Lord Stratford de Redcliffe, the British ambassador to the Ottoman Empire, operated in a state of high alarm, interpreting every Russian diplomatic note from Tsar Nicholas I not as a negotiable demand, but as an existential threat. Under this perpetual strain, Stratford advised Ottoman authorities to reject Russian diplomatic compromises regarding the guardianship of Holy Land sites. Unable to accurately process the diplomatic nuance in the cables, both sides accelerated mobilization, plunging Europe into a war that claimed over 700,000 lives over an initial dispute concerning the key to the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem. Contrast this with the October 27, 1962 incident aboard the Soviet submarine B-59 during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Trapped deep underwater in international seas, surrounded by 11 U.S. Navy destroyers, the submarine was subjected to non-lethal practice depth charges intended to force it to the surface. Trapped in intense heat with failing air conditioning, depleted batteries, and no radio contact with Moscow, the crew operated under severe physical exhaustion and terror. Believing World War III had already begun, Captain Valentin Savitsky ordered the launch of the submarine's nuclear-tipped torpedo, a strike that would have triggered an immediate full-scale nuclear exchange. The launch required the unanimous consent of 3 officers. While the political officer agreed with Savitsky, Executive Officer Vasily Arkhipov maintained extraordinary physiological composure. Refusing to let panic dictate an irreversible decision, Arkhipov absorbed the surrounding rage, refused to sign the launch order, and talked the captain down. Instead of firing, he convinced the crew to surface and make radio contact, diffusing a global nuclear catastrophe through the power of a single deliberate pause. The thesis, Managing the Auditory Gate. When adrenaline spikes, auditory gating limits a person's ability to hear complex language. To stabilize a high-stress interaction and restore accurate communication, we follow 3 protocols. 1. Lowering the environmental volume. Reduce vocal volume and slow speech cadence to signal safety to the listener's nervous system. 2. Direct, concrete communication. Avoid abstract phrasing or forced neutrality, which high-stress listeners often interpret as condescending or evasive. Use simple, unambiguous facts. 3. Recognizing nonverbal saturation. Watch for physical indicators of high arousal, such as shallow breathing, a fixed jaw, or glassy gaze. When these signals appear, hold the speech, pause, and allow time for cognitive processing to recover before delivering crucial information. The Commons Forge. How does managing the auditory gate support a world of sharing? When stress causes cognitive narrowing and shuts down empathetic processing, individuals default to defensive hoarding and self-preservation. A cracked cauldron cannot hold the shared resources or trust required to sustain a community. By acting as a cooling agent and actively downregulating environmental stress, a peace scholar mends the relational vessel. This creates the psychological safety necessary for people to step out of survival mode and contribute to a thriving cooperative civic commons. The quenching agent, micropractice. The universal stabilizer in a high-stress encounter is the recognition of biological limits. When you see someone's perception narrowing, do not increase the pressure by arguing harder. Instead, act as a cooling agent. By recognizing the cracked cauldron, you stop trying to fill it with facts and start trying to mend the vessel with safety. Homework. 1. Look up the term auditory gating and find one example of how the brain filters out background noise or nuance during a fight or flight moment. 2. Write down one question about any of this episode's topics. If you don't have a question, just write no question. 3. Optional. Journal about a time you felt your own cauldron crack, a moment where stress made it impossible for you to hear what someone was actually saying. If you'd like to read more on this subject, some book suggestions are Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, an essential landmark work detailing how high-arousal stress causes cognitive narrowing and shifts processing away from logical analysis, and The Chemistry of Connection by Judith E. Glaser, an insightful exploration of how neurochemistry dictates social trust, communication barriers, and relational stability under pressure. These are also in the show notes with the homework. The reaction. A sustainable reaction is a stabilized reaction. Social chemistry is a chemistry that honors biological limits before forcing logical outcomes. Until our next class, keep your elements stable. Class dismissed. Thank you for listening. If you're looking for your next read, I write books about strong friends, wild places, and a future worth the effort. The Pater the Water Dog Saves the Planet series follows two best friends, Tilly and Camus, strong, funny, and in love with the wild world, who decide their small choices add up to something. Hopeful eco-fiction for grown-ups, climate fiction without the doom. You can jump in anywhere or start with book 1. In one more year, Tilly can swim like a dolphin and run like the wind. She just never learned to cycle, which is a problem because she's decided to attempt her first Ironman. Her reason isn't glory, it's a quiet, stubborn idea. If one ordinary person can finish something this hard, maybe a whole town can be talked into buying less, wasting less, and keeping their stuff longer. One more year. To pull it off, Tilly leans on her best friend and coach Camus, tattooed, tequila-loving, and exactly the voice you'd want yelling at you from the shore, plus a gruff, retired cycling pro hiding out on a private island, a pack of maverick mountain bikers, a salty old pirate named Ike, and Pedro, her devoted water dog. Together they train, scheme, fall a little in love, and slowly realize their northwest lake town of Sandglass is facing a threat bigger than any race. My books are available wherever books are sold, including at avaskolfsbeck.com. Podcast music is by Javier Pequi Rodriguez, and the track is I Am Late, Madame Curie. Sound effects are from Pixabay. Regarding peace, we need not delay or despair. We are not late. We are right on time to love. We are all scholars of peace. Listen for the peace.